process around electric vehicles and trying to get them to be more popular and used in New Zealand. And of course electric vehicles run on roads, and we're very keen on getting the infrastructure, particularly around roading, sorted out. So today I am announcing that we are setting ourselves a target of 80,000 electric vehicles in New Zealand by 2023. And we believe that that is achievable, particularly if as a government we lead the way. So one of the things we know is that the current, the Labour Party, they had a target of having all the government vehicles electric. That's not happening. There's 15,000 government-owned electric vehicles, and they have got 100 of them electric. So after 3 years, it's sort of like, a Kiwi electric car that didn't work. But we are saying we'll have a third of the government fleet electric and work on from there. The reason it's a third is clearly where some places where it's not going to be as useful at the moment, particularly around, say, for instance, police, where the cars are often being used 24/7, but also in some remote parts of New Zealand. It's also important that we remember that some people at the moment, we still have to use utes. You still have a lot of tradespeople, farmers still have to use utes, and they're not really in the electric market at the moment. So we are, however, doing what we can to make this far more possible for us to be able to have 80,000 electric vehicles in the country in the next 3 years. In addition to that, we're going to have a new EV licence plate, and that will enable people who have an electric vehicle or a hybrid or a hydrogen hybrid to be able to use the bus lanes and the heavy traffic lanes. That's the T2, T3 lanes. That is really important, although the Northern Busway, which is a rapid transit route, that will not be included in that. That's primarily because of the grade separation that already exists and the fact that it is a rapid transit method of shifting people around. In addition to that, and to make it easier for businesses to be able to buy electric vehicles for themselves and their staff, is that we will be removing fringe benefit tax for the next 5 years on those electric vehicles. We think this will be a big incentive for businesses to go electric, and as they start to renew their fleet every few years, as many of them do, that will actually put more electric vehicles in the market at a cheaper price for New Zealanders. We think these are really sensible moves around electric vehicles and around electrifying the fleet. What we know from all the work we've done on carbon emissions is that the transport sector is one where we could get the biggest gains possible, and this is why we want to focus on the electric vehicles. We also think it's the way of the future, and we are a party that looks to the future.
Surely the best way to make them more accessible is to make them cheaper for people. How are you going to make them actually more accessible?
Well, this is one of the ways of making them cheaper is actually to have more in the country, but also if we have fleets, basically commercial fleets and government fleets going far more electric, that actually goes to mean that they are going to end up on the market in the private hands, and you're going to have more people wanting to buy them. What isn't going to help, though, is, of course, is if, as the current government's made some announcements around 100% renewable electricity, all that's going to do is push up the price of electricity. So we don't think that's a smart idea. We'd actually like to see more electric vehicles on the road, and one of the secrets of that is to make it more accessible.
And if you have more on the road and you put them into bus lanes, surely that's going to fulfil the purpose of bus lanes and also fulfil the electric vehicles.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of bus lanes with nobody in them and no buses either. I think it's really important that where we have bus lanes, that we also encourage electric vehicles. We already have them available for Crown cars travel in them. Many taxis are able to travel in them. We need to make sure that wherever we can, that we encourage the movement of people, but I think also it'll free up other lanes for other people as well. It will also encourage people to buy electric vehicles. So we think it's a really good move, and it's also about dealing with our carbon emissions, and we think that's important as well. Actually, removing fringe benefit tax is a huge incentive for businesses. I mean, at the moment, it's very disincentivising for a business to be able to, buy a car, use it for their staff to use and for their own personal use as such. That's currently subject to fringe benefit tax. So you remove that for electric vehicles. That's a huge incentive for businesses. What you're going to find is a lot of businesses moving that way.
How much will it make the upfront cost of an EV?
Well, it depends on which EV we're talking about. I've just been talking prices here, and there are some coming in here second-hand out of Japan, 2 years old, very, very good condition, very little use, $40,000. It's still a lot of money for people, but actually if you're buying a fleet of them, you're buying them in new, as many will, you take off the fringe benefit tax, and of course under our plans around businesses will be able to claim back or write off the costs of anything where they're producing things. So if they're using it for their business purposes, there's a possibility they can get that off as well. It's really important that we do this.
Do you own an electric vehicle?
No, but I'm onto it. And Katie, what we're doing at the moment, because we got held up by the COVID lockdown, level 3 in Auckland, but I've got the plug going into my carport, and I have one that I'm thinking about right now.
Do you think your MPs should have EVs for their cars?
Oh, I think it's when they can and it suits them. I think you've got to be, reasonable and understand that our MPs are buying their own cars, and it's not for me to tell them what to do. But I think many of them, and we've got a few here today who I know have EVs. They're very keen on them, and we're all hearing about it. So it's a nice modern way of being part of a growing economy.
How many of you have EVs?
I came in my fiance.
It's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah. Is it really?
It is.
We like to call that a dark pink.
Why did you reinvigorate the bus lane priority when it failed during the trial a number of years ago?
We think it's actually time for it to be used, and that's why we need the plate, an EV plate itself, so that people can tell which one it is. Some people I know they didn't like driving in the bus lane in case people sort of honked at them and they had to try and explain themselves. An EV plate will help people.
Will it really get people buying their own EV?
Yes, it will. Yeah.
Because when will people get EVs when they're going in bus lanes? Do they just clog up bus lanes?
That's why you have these policies in place, and you come back and you look at them and say, is this still working? Policies are not always meant, these sorts of provisions are not meant forever. This is something that we'll see how it goes, and if it goes really well, it's great. If it doesn't, that's, we'll adjust it, and that's what happens. So when you start, any policy like that always needs to be refreshed at some stage, but I think it'll be a big boost for people who are sick and tired of watching while the T2, T3 lanes are there, and they're sitting there thinking, here we are, let's start using it.
The PM's announced.
Well, no, I haven't got one yet, but I've got my eye on it. I've just been asking Hedley about them now, actually. So wait and see till I've got it.
Are you going to get blue on them?
I think blue, white, grey, silver, excellent. Any of those are brilliant.
This is what Labour's plan. They're going to basically try and open borders to get more essential workers into the proposal to put essential workers. Is that the right way of doing it? What do you think?
But you know what I think? I just think when this issue was being raised by National a little while back, and we were asking for a conversation about this, we were accused by Jacinda Ardern and the Labour Party of wanting to open the borders and let COVID-19 in. Well, actually, I thought that was a really cynical and political thing for them to say. Quite clearly there is an issue. They need to address that, and it's always about safety, isn't it, as well as the economy.
Is it too risky?
Well, we'll have to find out whether or not they're confident in their border. Clearly we are having COVID-19 still come into the country, so they need to justify it.
Are we ready to
The
have
government
people?
has agreed to pay for flight tickets for Australian immigrants who can't afford tickets home. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we haven't seen what the rules are around that and what the provisions are, so we'll have a look at that.
Are
Thanks.
we ready to take people from the US, I guess? Workers in the US with this new announcement?
What for, in what essential way?
Is New Zealand ready to take workers?
Oh, well, we are, I don't know, you have to ask the Prime Minister, she's the one who has the medical information. I think it's really important that we understand we cannot have fortress New Zealand forever. We do need to be able to bring people in when they're needed for the economy and also for compassionate reasons. We need to be able to do that. But we also need to be doing that in a safe way. The last thing we want is yet another yo-yo into lockdown.
So do you think, though, that if the borders are safe enough, we should bring in more high-skilled workers that we need at the moment?
Well, clearly, if the borders are safe and we're confident in that, we need to be able to do that. We have particularly seasonal workers in the agricultural contracting areas, the vineyards and others, where there are specialists who work between hemispheres, but not until it's safe and not until we know it's in the best interest of New Zealand. It's always got to be about that.
So those are workers you think are going to fit in this?
There may be other industries. We've certainly seen exemptions being made around some industries and some particular workplaces. I think it's important that we always put the best interests of New Zealand first.
Do you think the PM's leveraging incumbency for votes?
Oh, well, look, I think every PM does that, don't they? I don't worry about it. I'm sure the people will make their own minds up about that. I always think people shouldn't expect, we should never expect the New Zealand public can't see through some of that stuff. I think they can see through it pretty well.
Do you think, I guess, which candidates do you want people to vote for in Epsom?
Well, obviously, people in Epsom will do what they will usually do, which is to vote the way they want to. I would personally like to see all of the party vote in Epsom come to the National Party. I have a great deal of time for both Paul Goldsmith and David Seymour, and our view is generally that David Seymour and Paul Goldsmith are both excellent candidates. Personally, I don't live in the Epsom electorate, but many people will vote for David Seymour as well.
Would you like the electric vote in Epsom as well, or would you prefer 2 ticks?
No, I've been very clear in the past that we support David Seymour as the electorate candidate. We also have a huge amount of time and regard for obviously our finance spokesperson, Paul Goldsmith, and we'll be expecting the party vote from Epsom, please, in every single one.
If you start bleeding votes to act, further bleeding votes to act, would you reconsider that decision to support David?
No, we are absolutely not bleeding votes to act anymore. Thank you.
If you're bad polling, could you end up hurting rather than helping David Seymour's chances of winning a seat?
Oh, I don't know where you'd get that from.
Just on, New Zealand has lost the hosting of the rugby championship.
Yes.
What's your view on that? Who's to blame for that?
Well, I think the Prime Minister needs to answer on that one, and I'm sure she'll want to have her view as to what's happened. But it's pretty clear that we've been beaten by the Aussies again.
She says it's because of rugby politics, not because of the issue around teams isolating. What do you think?
I think I heard that the government was offering to just let the teams in, not everything else, the squads. So let's see what they would say. I think, look, Jacinda Ardern needs to answer for that. It's not for me to answer. She hasn't consulted me on it. She needs to answer her own questions.
How disappointing is this, though? Do you think the government should be
Well, I think it's
pushing more to make sure that
look,
candidates get votes?
rugby's just not a game in New Zealand. It's part of the New Zealand culture. Although not every New Zealander enjoys rugby, it is definitely part of the New Zealand culture. And I think that people will be disappointed. They'll be very disappointed. However, the Prime Minister needs to answer for her own government's decisions or lack of decisions.
Have you come up with a strategy, or will you look at a way of ensuring we can host more sports and events if COVID continues so that we can keep bringing things in?
It's really important that we have a safe border. A safe border is absolutely crucial, and that is why we need a border protection agency. That's why when we say we're testing people, that we are testing people. That's why we need to test people before we put them on planes to come to New Zealand. That's why we need to have people to pay something towards their quarantine and managed isolation costs. That's why we need to have technology, using technology in a modern way to deal with it. These are all the things that could be in place that aren't at the moment. And I think what's really important is to understand we cannot just lock up New Zealand without being able to let people to come in and go, but they have to be done in a managed and sensible way, in a safe way. We should always be about safety and the economy.
But should there be a specific plan around events and sporting events
Well-
so we can continue to host?
Well, clearly we're losing now. It's the same with business. We've got businesses crying out for specialist staff, some of whom are highly qualified and specialist people. The fact that the government has no confidence in their own border plan shows me that they don't have the confidence to do it. Thank you.
Put your mic.